Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today, our guest is Vanessa Louise Moore. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Jude.
How are you today?
I'm great today, actually.
Brilliant. So tell me about you, Vanessa.
Oh, where shall I start? Okay, so I'm Vanessa Louise Moore. I am a transformational mentor and daredevil consultant. I'm passionate about being a maverick woman, and I'm also a mum of 2.
There is loads to unpick just in there. So let's start off. What's a daredevil consultant?
Oh, a daredevil consultant. A daredevil consultant is where I challenge people to live as their true self. And that for me takes courage. So therefore, a daredevil is born, but it's also a dare process that I use. Through my years of my own transformation, I've narrowed it down to a few steps that I believe is necessary for us to have the type of transformation necessary for us to live as our essential selves.
Cool. That sounds very interesting. And you said you was also proud to be a maverick woman. What does that mean?
Well, there is so much power in women, I believe, and I so enjoy being a woman. But to be a maverick woman, I believe, is what this world needs. And I love how women can stand together in community. And actually, the word that struck me in your introduction was integrity. And I feel that sometimes we're not in our integrity. We're not living with integrity, through fear. And that for me is what a maverick, having worked with you and being such, so in awe of the work that you do, it takes courage to be a maverick.
Yes, it does. And I think that's probably why a lot of people prefer to be more conformist, because it's difficult. And it takes real courage.
Well, it's a habitual way of being, let's face it. To conform and to follow the status quo is really just following the herd. We don't want to stand out. We want to fit in. It's a natural human need to feel like we belong. The problem is that when we conform and we go along with the herd and along with the majority in the matrix of people, we believe that that's what fitting in is, whereas actually to not fit in and to fit in your shaped hole in the world, for me, is what I believe fitting in is.
Yeah, and I think most mavericks prefer to smash it so that they actually make the hole that fits them perfectly.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. We spend our lives trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, bending ourselves out of shape like a pretzel, to conform because of fear of being judged, and we just create stories around that to protect ourselves, and we go along with other people rather than standing in our own power, if you like, which is really what a maverick is comfortable doing.
Okay, brilliant. And looking at your work, I know it's one of the things that you're really pushing out there into the universe is the importance of being naked. Can you explain to listeners what does that mean?
Yeah, well, for me, being naked is stripping back the layers of the stories that we have created around ourselves, the parts that we play in life, to reveal, if we strip all of those back, to reveal our essential selves, who we truly are. And there's a quote that came up a couple of years ago that really resonated with me, that really made me realize that the word naked that I'd been wrestling with all my life, because I thought it was about body consciousness rather than actually, for me, what truly naked is that we believe in insanity because we created it, but we do not believe in love because we did not. And that's from A Course in Miracles. And when I really sat with that and worked out, for me, why it resonated so much, there would just be a couple of words I'd change in that to help people understand, for me, exactly what that quote is trying to say. And it's, you believe in the stories you've created about yourself because you created them, but you don't believe in who you truly are because you didn't create that person. And it's about, you know, it's easier to believe what you've created to be true, and we live a lie believing it's truth, rather than actually believing that who we are is perfect, whole and complete. Because actually that's really what we are. We just see ourselves as broken because of the stories we've made up about ourselves.
That's really quite profound. Do you have an example of how you've taken somebody through that revealing of that nakedness and what the effect was?
Well, the first person I took through that was myself, which, because years ago, all I wanted to do was help people feel better about themselves because I hated the way I felt growing up. And it was natural for me to take myself into training to help women feel better about themselves from the outside. So it was a cosmetic industry that I was a part of for probably nearly 30 years. It's not until you work so much on the outside of a person, whether that's yourself or anybody else, that you realize that the true beauty of who people are is their hearts, you know, who they truly desire to be. And for me, working with people and helping them recognize, they get so caught up in their stories and who they think they are. And the mask is a very popular analogy that people use. It's the same thing as a story. We wear these masks, we create these stories to protect, to hide and pretend to be somebody that we believe fits in, because we are so frightened to reveal and be very vulnerable and show people who we truly are. And that is a whole myriad of emotions, if you like. There's a whole lot of the good, the bad, the different, that we are so frightened of people seeing, because not very many people really do stand in their true authentic power, in their integrity. So, you know, it's putting your head above the parapet, if you like. But it's just helping somebody listen to their emotional self and working with them step by step, because as they start to unpick and peel back the layers, all sorts of memories and emotional places that we have buried so deep within us as a result of things that have happened in our lives, as that starts to reveal itself, it can be very uncomfortable, and for a lot of people incredibly painful. So I just work with them step by step, and by having conversations with them where I act as a mirror and help them see where they've got so caught up in their stories, the language that they use to protect themselves. And I'm like the mirror that I reflect back to them what they're saying to me to help them realize it for themselves. I don't have the answers for them. I just simply hold the space and reflect back to them what they're saying to me. And by having a conversation around it, they start to recognize where they are caught up in a story that is just simply not true.
Well, what strikes me there is that you're probably underselling yourself a little bit. I've seen a couple of your talks and what people have said afterwards and how you've changed them, even in a 30-minute chat. So I can imagine actually working with you, the changes must be quite substantial. So being naked, is that something that only women need to do, or what about men?
No, absolutely everybody, woman, man and child. We tend to find men are less reluctant to get naked, if you like, because of they're more frightened to be vulnerable. Generally, that's a real sweeping statement. I tend to find women are happier to get naked and have conversations around how they can feel better about themselves because of how women are built, if you like. We are naturally nurturing, compassionate, loving human beings, that we tend to feel a lot deeper, and we are a lot more expressive in those feelings. We don't fear quite as much as men. And then you take teenagers, they are a lot more expressive. In my experience, even though some of them can be locked down due to their circumstances, generally speaking, teenagers and youngsters are a lot freer with expressing what they feel, because they just seem to be that bit braver. It's a lot more of an exposed world that they live in, whereas we've grown up in a world that, you know, before the internet, in our day, before the internet was around, you really could keep your business to yourself. So we just got very good at hiding what we truly felt. And plus the fact, nobody prepares you for what you don't know. And nobody really prepares you to deal with your emotional state, the inner turmoil that goes on within oneself. And I've just been spending a couple of days in a female prison and having conversations with the prisoners of, let's face it, they're there because they've got themselves into trouble. They've broken the law. They have been unable to control how they feel and have picked out, acted out, done something to harm or break the law. And they don't, some of them do not understand how they got themselves into that place. And it's because nobody's really taught us to deal with what happens within us chemically and within the cells of our body as we navigate ourselves through life. Right from an early age, it could be whether you trip over in the playground and people laugh at you, or whether you are abused. It's all still trauma, and nobody really prepares us for that happening, but also then how to deal with what we feel as a result of those incidents and those circumstances within our lives. And it just builds, and it just becomes more of a snowball of a story that we create around ourselves, and it stops us from living as we are meant to be living, which is in complete joy and freedom and peace, which I know seems a fairy tale, but that's, I believe, you've only got to look outside the window and have a look at nature. You know, we're born to thrive. We are born to thrive. And one of the prisoners actually said to me yesterday, she challenged me on that, and she said, I don't mean to be harsh, but she said, who said we're meant to be here living joyously and at peace? What if it's meant to be terrible and depressing? And it breaks my heart that we just are unable to deal with what we feel, recognize what we feel, express how we feel. So therefore, our behavior is out of control.
That's really interesting, because what struck me there, it sounded to me like what we're really talking about is like, emotional immaturity, and somewhere in the growing up stage from an infant to an adult, is that the emotional growth has become stunted in a particular area, and that's what's causing the problems. And maybe what you're doing is not removing the emotional, what's causing emotional stunt, but it's helping the other person reveal it so they can do it themselves. So you're empowering. Is that right?
Well, absolutely. Well, I'd like to think so. And this is something that, like I said earlier, it's not something when I was a little girl I thought of myself doing, because I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I really didn't have very many friends at all. I really struggled with myself. And it's only as a result of my absolute wish to feel connected to people, and ultimately myself, to just see people having fun and be happy, that my life has evolved, and as a result of, I suppose, if you like, overcoming my own adversity, and that being inner turmoil as well as outer turmoil. it's led me to truly want to see people connect, feel at peace, be happy, have fun. There is nothing more important to me than feeling good. Because when we feel good, it's green lights all the way to work. You know, people notice us. Our bodies feel healthy. We feel less frustrated and less angry. We've all had days where we just feel like, wow, this is it. And equally, we've all had days where we feel absolutely rubbish. It's red lights all the way to work. We trip over something silly and it becomes a huge problem. People overlook us, or they get angry with us, or we get angry. So that you can see that it's either one thing or the other. And I just want to help people understand that how they feel is of ultimate importance to how they live their lives. And when we can take responsibility for ourselves, that's when we will then see our world outside ourselves shift. Even if you are in the constraints of a prison, like I've been witnessing in these last few days, I was thinking about it this morning. Actually, I think what's worse is actually living outside of a prison within your own prison walls that you have created with yourself. I think when we put those constraints on ourselves and when we put those walls up around ourselves, I think that's possibly worse than actually being inside four walls.
Yeah, I think that's really, really profound. And what strikes me is that if you look at it in the business world, particularly people who are working for themselves, I think people are struggling a lot more these days because they're trying to work from an old paradigm. So, you know, they have their niche and they're like, right, I've got this really great niche, and then somebody else has the same niche, and then they niche down into smaller niches, and then there's like two people in the niche that they couldn't sell to. And then they need to, you know, establish a tribe, get people to want to be around them. But to do that, you need to be naked. And people don't want to do that. And it just strikes me that your work would be very useful for freelancers and consultants, especially when they go networking, because they go networking like they're Coca-Cola or Virgin or something, like this big corporate. So they're it's not just stiff, but they're not open. Like you said with the millennials, they're not prepared to be vulnerable, not prepared to give anything of themselves. And in this day and age, why would I buy off somebody that I don't know when I can just pay the exact same money to somebody else who is probably equally as good?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? You've hit the nail on the head. I was at a business meeting probably about 10 years ago, and Mike Clare was the business speaker. Mike Clare is the guy who had dreams and sold his business, I think, for 200 million. So I'm sitting next to this man at a dining table, before he spoke, and we're chatting along. You know, sort of chit chat as we're having dinner. And I said, I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak. And then while he was speaking, he said, everybody I've spoken to in this room, because obviously we're going to listen to him because he's hugely successful and he was great fun. He was a real character. He was so open and so honest. And he said, everybody I've spoken to in this room before I stood up here to speak to you, I asked you one question and nobody gave me the right answer. And I thought to myself at the time, I don't remember him asking me a question. And he said, I asked every single one of you that I spoke to, what makes your business different? What makes you different? And none of you gave me the right answer. So anyway, he didn't tell us what the answer was. He finished speaking. I walked up to him and I said, Mike, can I just ask you a question? I said, you didn't actually ask me that question because I have an answer for you. So he said, oh, okay, Vanessa, what makes you different? What makes your business different? And I said, me. And he went, that's the answer I'm looking for. Not one of the guys or girls in this room gave me that answer. They said, well, we have a system that does this, and we have these employers that do this, and I do this because, and he said, not one person, not one business person in this room gave me the answer that me is what makes my business different. And I wasn't trying to be clever. I just saw that as the most obvious answer. And because of the interaction I've had with business people throughout the years, not just in business, but where I have bought things from people, I've walked out of shops before because somebody has either ignored me or not look me in the eye, or I just get a funny feeling about a space, whereas I've bought things I don't need from people because I have a connection with them, because they've shown me who they are, I believe, to be true. So that for me, as you say, you put me on the head, I would much rather work and deal with people who are naked and doing their business. They can still do a good job, but they are in alignment with themselves, and we've all got, it's the nature of a human being to have stories, but it's when you are aware of them and when you're who you truly are and your essential self. And I want to drop the jargon because so much of that is used right now, but when you can shine through that, so you can still do your job professionally, but there is that essence, that thread of you shining through, that is what I believe makes it different. And that's what I think people are scared of. I think that's what they're scared of, because not very many people do it.
I think you're right. And I think certainly as a socialised maverick, which you are and I am, is very much like that. We want to collaborate with the people we're with, you know, so we want to make sure we like them, we like their reputation, you know, something about them shines out. And I find that even when I'm working with individuals, whether they're corporates or whether they're, you know, small business owners, is that very thing. It's like, what is it about you that makes a difference, and how does the you in what you do shine out? And, you know, here are the steps to do that. And I think
absolutely. And I think also as well, the other thing is that when we shine, we illuminate the way for others. So there has to be an element of socialized mavericks have to show people that it can be done, and not that this is the way, but this is my way. And by illuminating the space that we are in, it shows that it's possible, and therefore it's almost by osmosis or by magic. They are, if they allow themselves to be transformed or enlightened, if you like, or empowered, then they can find out for themselves how they do that.
Because say, for example, you've got, I don't know, £500, £1,000 or whatever it is per month to spend on someone who's going to help you with your business. There's lots of people who are charging the same sort of money. So if it was a pure transaction, you could close your eyes and just pick someone. But if it's somebody that you want to collaborate with, who to be part of what you do, then you have to go for the right person for you. You know, and it's a collaboration, and as well as an osmosis between two people, not two businesses. And I think that's what people miss, isn't it? They always think it's the business. I think probably this is why the Maverick Paradox working lunches work so well, because we sit and talk and we know business will come, but it's not about, tell me about your business. It's like, no, let me buy into you first. And once I've bought into you, then I'll buy whatever you've got to sell.
Well, and do you know why a lot of it is? I believe it's because it's trust. There's too many people out there that, well, let's just say in inverted commas, cowboys within businesses. There's lots of people out there, and sometimes not for any fault of their own, but they just get caught up in ticking the right boxes at the right time in the right places to earn a wage, because there is that pressure. Like, just, you know, let's make that really clear, is that, you know, we are living in this world. So there is a certain amount of money that we do need to be able to make ends meet. Okay. And that's when then I think we're forced to make decisions, sometimes based on that, rather than what do I actually want? What's true for me? And that's where we get caught, because we have to let go. You cannot catch a ball. If I throw you a ball, you cannot catch a ball if you're already holding one. And that's why we have the letting go of what it is that we believe is true, what's worked sort of in the past, or at least is bringing in some sort of money. We're too frightened to let that go. Even if it's people, we're too frightened to let it go, to then create the space for what is right for us to come in. And I've always said I would much rather be the example rather than just talk about it, because the truth is undeniable. So when people see it and feel it, that's when then it's up to them whether they want to do the same for themselves.
Perfect analogy. Perfect place to stop, I think. Vanessa, thanks for coming. Will you come back again?
Thanks, Jude. Of course I will. You know that. I'd love to come and have a chat with you. I love chatting with you. We get loads done. We'll put the world to rights, won't we?
Definitely. Well, in that case, you're definitely welcome back again.
Thanks, lovely.
Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Vanessa as much as I enjoyed having it. If you'd like to learn more about Mavericks and leadership, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, apply to join the Maverick Paradox exclusive Facebook group, and my website is maverickparadox.com. Find out how willful independence can ultimately change all our futures. Thanks again, and see you soon.